welcome to Discussing Trek. Today we're here to talk about Star Trek Lower Decks, Season 4, Episode 4, Something Borrowed, Something Green, excuse me. Like always, I'm your host Clarence, and I'm joined by my fellow co-host slash Trekkie, Larry Irby. How you doing, man?
I am doing great. A little tired, but we're going to get through it.
Yeah, honestly, this episode had me asking the question, is Devana Tendi the most interesting officer in Starfleet? Question mark. Maybe not the most interesting, but of course she has some interesting backstory that we'll talk about in this episode that I found very fascinating.
Mm. Well, I'll say this. We'll get into it. We'll get into
All righty then. First, I'd like to say welcome to anybody in the chat. Thank you guys for being here. We really appreciate it. And I guess we'll go ahead and get into our review if you don't have anything else. Any Star Trek news that came up that you'd like to talk about before you dive into this thing?
I cannot think of anything. I did hear that the writers are close to an agreement, if they haven't already signed one, with the studios, which would be nice.
Yes, that is a good thing. Although it doesn't really, it's not really an agreement for the actors just yet. But
Get
this is the
right.
first. This is the first step to get the writers back, and at least we can get some things in motion. You know, some of those balls rolling a little bit in motion, so we can start getting some of these productions up and running as soon as they complete whatever they're going to do with the actors. Hopefully, they get a good deal too. From what I heard from this one so far, it seems like it might be a pretty decent deal for the writer. So yeah, I'm glad they're, kind of wrapping that up.
Yeah, but other than that, I don't have any other news.
All right. For some reason, our chat is not coming up. So if you're in chat, I can't see you for some reason. I don't know
I
if you
can
can.
see them.
Huh. So maybe it's my connection. All right. Well, monitor the chat, Larry, because
Okay.
I just have this
Tasha, Tasha's
revolving.
here. Wing Grace is here.
Awesome guys. Thank you guys for being here. So, Larry, let's go ahead and get into our review of Star Trek Lower Decks Something Borrowed, Something Green, which was written by Grace Parra Janney and directed by Bob Suarez. Tendi is summoned back to Orion for a wedding. So, if you have not seen this episode, put us on pause, go out, watch the episode, come back, because from this moment forward, spoilers. The spoiler warning has been dropped, and we are back to talk about this episode, Something Borrowed, Something Green. Larry, what are your high level thoughts of this episode, sir?
I absolutely love this episode because, like I said, the first few episodes of Lower Decks this year haven't really set my world on fire. There's,
Mm,
I liked them. I didn't think they were bad, but they were just, I was lukewarm, especially towards the first couple. But this was to me back to Lower Deck form.
mm,
Loved, of course, I've always said this is a great when you get that um like I said, Firefly. They did like where you had the one person on the crew who seemed to be the least harmless, but it turned out this person had a sordid backstory that you have no clue about.
are we talking about Summer Glau there?
No, actually not.
No, who are we talking about?
No.
Okay,
Talking
enlighten me.
about talking about Shepard,
Oh, Shep. Yeah,
the
yeah.
late
I love
late
Shep.
great Ron Glass. And
Yeah.
Shepard, he had a lot of things about Shepard that we never got to find out, unfortunately.
Mm, yeah. So, my high level thought of this episode, I thought it was a good one. It was very original, for my opinion. Um, they filled in a lot of the gaps of some of the gaps of some of the things we may have thought about the Orions. Maybe put a different spin on the Orions for this current generation. So I thought all of that was very interesting, very well done. Larry, when we were up top, before we came on, we were kind of talking about the history of the Orions. Do you think we've evolved from that first time we saw Vina dancing as an Orion in the cage? Have we evolved much from that
We
point?
we have somewhat, probably not as much as we needed to. Um, the Orions are still pretty stereotyped as uh, belly dancers slash pirates slash thieves. And then I've got to be honest, my show Discovery didn't really help much with that. Because,
Yeah, Osira was a bit of a tyrant there. So,
then again, we did get to see in Discovery, we did get to see the young Orion officer. And
yes, we did
we
on the
did
mission with
see him,
Tilly. That
right?
was
And
fun.
the one young man who was a Tellarite.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's give and take. But even Enterprise, when they had that where they were trying to sell to Paul.
Yeah.
So I told you before we came on air, I got to meet the second Orion
Hmm.
ever filmed, and that was of course Yvonne Craig, who
Hmm.
also portrayed Batgirl. For those who don't know, I got to meet her many years ago at a convention. It's very cool.
Yeah, man, it's been interesting to see how they've kind of spinned it and or spin the story of the Orions to something slightly different. But they still, honestly, even in this episode, they still have kept all that stuff we've heard long ago about the pheromones and the slave girls and all this stuff, and even the women being in charge now. I mean, they kind of kept all of that and threw it in this episode and made it all make sense. And we've kind of been wondering from the first time we saw Tendi on screen, like, what's the deal here? Are Orion in Starfleet? And to see how far she is away or different from that, but still so close, is very interesting. She's kind of left all that behind. She's moved on to, pardon the pun, greener pastures with Starfleet. So, yeah, she's given away all that she has built up over there to be a scientist. So I find it very interesting.
I love the fact that Tendi, she it's not because somebody said, "Oh, it seems like they've made her ashamed of her people." Well, I think any of us would be ashamed if people did certain things that were bad, but it doesn't mean she's completely. I think she's more ashamed, like that how rich she is and privileged she is, and she was raised to be an assassin,
Mm.
you know, and mistress of the winter constellations, and right.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
but this was fun for me, especially the side get like the whole thing with Rutherford and Boimler. It was fun a little bit. I didn't find it that humorous, but the whole thing with Tendi, I just was in love with that. I was like, especially Mariner. No
yeah,
matter where she was, she got stabbed in the same spot.
yeah. It was, and I'm gonna pick up a few comments in a second, but it was really fun to see Mariner still be silly, but take a back seat. And I feel like it wasn't as
Yes.
jarring and as turn offish. That she was just kind of the background jokey joke character. She wasn't the main character in all this silliness. So I really love Mariner in this
That's
episode.
great.
She was really funny, and they kept with the getting stabbed gag, and we see the difference from Mariner and Talin. Talin is there on a, it's a girls trip, but she's there on a scientific. She's trying to research and more find out more about the Orions. Mariner's here to party. She says from the beginning. She even gets happy about the brothel they go into, or the club slash brothel. So, and also the fifth largest house in the Orion Syndicate, the Tendi household. Which, wow, and Mariner's loving all that, so I thought it was great. So a few comments here. When Grace is saying that, if I can pull it up here. Okay, I may not be able to pull it up, but I'll read it. When Grace says, we saw a pretty competent woman, Orion, in TAS. If you recall, she was in charge of an alliance trapped in another dimension or something. I've seen very little an animated series. Maybe Ryan Hart can chime in there. But I heard our friend Charles Kelso from the Earth Station Trek podcast say they weren't even pronounced as Orions in the original series. He said they were pronounced as Orions. Did, do you recall that at all, Larry, or
I I
anybody in the
do
chat?
I do not.
Yeah, he says it was.
Listen, hey, I'm not saying he's not wrong. I will just go back and have to look
Yeah,
because I mean, now we talking from the beginning of the Kirk time, or
no,
we
no, no,
talking about the Cage?
no. Just he's the animated series only. Just an
Oh,
animated
okay,
series.
okay,
So he
okay.
said that somebody may have pronounced it wrong, and they had to just go with it. Because again, go listen to his show where he's talking about this Earth Station Trek podcast. But he says that a lot of the times they only got one take for a lot of stuff. So maybe somebody just said it wrong, and it kind of just they didn't want to. They want to keep the continuity there for them. And he also said the Orions were slightly more blue than green in the animated series. So maybe somebody can enlighten us on that. I found it very interesting. But Tasha says here that the Orions have come a long way. And I have to agree. I kind of like what they did with them in Enterprise by trying to flip it a little bit. I thought that was very interesting. And of course, as you mentioned before, once we get to New Trek, I thought Osira was fun in Disco. And, she kind of played into the stereotype of the pirates thing that we think the Orions would be. And even in Strange New Worlds, we you don't forget we got the scene that a lot of people hated from Strange New Worlds when Pike had the Orion ship and and he did the R and the people didn't like it too much. But I think that was the Orions as well. So we've seen quite a lot of them in New Trek, and I've enjoyed a lot of it as well.
Well, they're one of the legacy species that you don't hear a lot about. Before we came on the air, I said J.J. Abrams did a lot because he had the actress in that one who played an Orion
Yeah.
with beautiful red hair. I'm fond of that. She was in Continuum. If anybody's ever seen that sci-fi show, it's phenomenal. But I love that. And she and Uhura, there was actually other footage with her and Zoe Saldana as Uhura that was not used. So she
Mm,
actually had a bigger role in that movie than the little bit we saw, just her and Kirk, little
yeah.
private time.
So technically, she was kind of the first Orion in Starfleet, but alternate universe. Kind of.
I guess. I mean,
Well, let me ask you this: what do you think about this reoccurring thing we have in Star Trek of the first, Elnor, the first Romulan, of Nog, the first Ferengi? We keep kind of doing this thing, the first one in Starfleet, and it's always a big thing. Have we kind of worn that out at this point, or it's still this slightly different spin we have here with Orions? Is that enough to make it interesting and exciting?
well, I think anytime I think there's a first, especially if it's a species who the Federation was not cool with at one time. And you got to look at one time the Ferengi were not cool with the Federation. The Klingons were. I mean, Worf. They talk about Worf
Yeah,
being the first Klingon to graduate. Start. Now I don't know was Worf the first in there, but it's just like Spock was the first Vulcan to
yeah,
graduate from Starfleet Academy. He wasn't the first Vulcan in Starfleet, but he was the first to graduate from the Academy and come up.
yeah.
So the same thing. I don't think it's really worn out. I think it's kind of like uh, the Cardassians. I really would love. I mean, we have a Cardassian president
Mm,
in Discovery time. That's cool, man.
yeah,
Because I think about how much they used to be enemies,
yeah,
and now the president of the Federation is she's half Cardassian, and I'm not sure what else, but
yeah, yeah. That's one of the things I really loved about that season of. Well, I guess those the last few seasons of Discovery, but also one of the things that really kind of not made me mad, but wanted had me wanting more because it kept hinting at DS9 stuff. Sort of like they kind of did in the last seasons of Picard. They were hinting at DS9 stuff, and we even got changelings, but they kept hinting at that in Discovery, and we didn't really get a lot of it. So yeah, maybe we'll get more of that in the latest season of Discovery.
Yeah.
Uh, so let's get into the episode a little bit. We go to Orion the first time we've been there, and this is in animated form. Pretty cool. Uh, did you really? Did you really expect this family, this house structure, kind of that we had going on here with Tendi being kind of the one of the elite houses? That was very interesting to me, and she's even the prime of her family. You know, you would think in most of other cases it would be the eldest male heir, or something like that. But in this case, it's Tendi, the oldest female heir. I'm assuming in this case is the prime of the family.
Well, maybe it's the oldest
Yeah, maybe it's
because
just the
she
oldest.
obviously
Period. Yeah.
doesn't have it. Now, I absolutely expected this 100%. And I'm going to tell you why. Because when you have somebody like Tendi who's so tentative, oh, well, we're just a regular family. I bet you her family is one of the head of the syndicate. And I wasn't far off. She said her
Yeah.
family is one of the top three, didn't she
I think
say?
it's in top five. Yeah.
Top five
Yeah.
in the syndicate. Oh, Tasha just said that President Rillick was human, Cardassian, and Bajoran, which is
Wow.
cool.
Awesome.
But yeah, I love when they get there and they immediately put them on that, what it's called, the litters
I don't know
that
what
they
that
lit.
thing
I
is.
think
Yeah, they
like,
lifted them
yeah.
up. Yeah. Yeah.
And I that was just perfect to me. And to Lynn, in fact, I don't know her name, but the actress that does to Lynn, she's voiced stuff before.
She's amazing. Yeah.
I love have her addition.
Yeah,
Love
we
it.
we kind of talked about that last week, and pretty much everybody I've heard talk about this season of Lower Decks, it's like a universal love of this Talon character. It's just enough, and I said this last week, but it's just enough to ground the craziness from the other characters, and it's kind of what the show has been missing. So I'm loving it.
Yeah, I like Talinda. She's just like doing it. And I love it when they're taking them through and they get their house and her mom. And she's just like, but I love it. The embarrassment is not because they're Orions. It's just a kid being embarrassed to be there
Yeah,
with their mom and
yeah,
dad. And you can see the mom runs the show.
yeah.
Dad's just there.
Yes, it reminded me a lot of the scene we had in Strange New Worlds of oh, what's her name?
Uh,
Spock's.
the,
Yeah,
T'Pring's
T'Pring's
mom and
mom.
dad.
Yeah, yeah, very similar.
Yeah, it was very similar.
But I found it so interesting in this episode of how, although Tendi has tended to or tried to stray away from a lot of these things that she grew up with, being the assassin in the prime of her family, it seems like now she's, I don't even know if it's shameful of it, but she just kind of put all that completely behind her. And it's so funny when it comes up and she runs into the next person and they're like, oh, that's, like she's a superstar basically. And that was just so funny to me because she's, in many ways, she's such a humble character to me. Out of all of the Lower Deckers,
Mhm.
she's probably the most down to earth as far as, being eccentric and stuff as like Boimler and Mariner is. But yeah, I just found that very interesting and fun that she goes there and everybody's fawning over her, and she's a star. She's a star there, man, no doubt.
Like I love, they get to the door. Wait your turn. It's like, oh, mistress, I did not realize it was you. It's like, oh, it's okay. She just tried to play it off. Like I'm really nobody here, but obviously you're somebody.
Yeah, and also we learned that she's such a badass, and it has nothing to do with the pheromones. She's just a badass.
Yeah.
And we even hear that not every Orion woman uses those or has those. And of course, Tendi does the most science thing ever by concocting a anti-pheromone device.
Well, here's the thing. Remember this too. Different writers do different things. So
Yeah,
that whole thing with the pheromones and all this stuff, that's all up in the air. Sometimes they mention it, sometimes they don't. Just
yeah,
depends. Like in Discovery, I don't think that ever came up
never came
at
up.
all. And I also don't know when they're in the brothel
Uh-huh.
with Giorgio
Yes.
and 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 that's in the before they went into the future,
Hmm.
and they're in the brothel. Nobody said anything about
Yeah, we
pheromones
saw
or
Clint Howard.
the man, the legend.
Oh, he's
Man is a
everywhere, man.
legend. But yeah, but the Orions, I definitely have always loved. I actually made an Orion character on Star Trek Online.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yep.
You know, you have to give us screenshots. You can't just say it and never mention it
If I
again.
could ever pull it up again.
We'll be waiting for those. Uh, and yeah, when it gets down to it, I think they tried to. I don't know if they tried to make. Well, it seems as if they tried to make both of these storylines. And we'll get to the Boimler thing in a minute, but it seems as if they tried to make these storylines have the same moral. Really, it's just to
Mhm.
talk to each other. I guess is kind of what they were saying. Just talk it out. Um, and it's a classic thing of I thought a lot about the prodigal son kind of thing when I was thinking of Tendi with this as well. But she's the top of the family, and she leaves and wants to go off and do her own thing. And this next person in line uh, has to take over the family and kind of run things. And she doesn't think she's ready, but you know, Tendi thought she was ready. So
I knew. I bet money. I said I know when that her sister didn't get kidnapped. If she got kidnapped, it was probably like by another. I didn't know if she kidnapped herself, but she got kidnapped. It's by a rival Orion who actually wants her to marry him. So he didn't kidnap her, but turned out she kidnapped herself, and her sister's a badass, man.
oh yeah, oh yeah, for
And
sure.
again, that's the
The
greatest
Erica,
one. Yeah,
the
that's
Erica.
the Erica. That's the best one with Mariner too, where she actually got down behind the thing. Okay, I'm staying out of this. I'm staying, and then she throws the knife. Tendi blocks it, hits the thing, and then
Oh
goes
boy.
Mariner. She said, "Oh, seriously,
Talk about your bad
serious."
luck, man. Talk about your bad luck.
That was a good gag.
Yeah, it was. It was. Like I said, I really enjoy Mariner. And again, to Lynn and Tasha, well, actually, when Grace puts in the chat here, uh, to Lynn Sanity for our
Yeah,
basketball people out there.
yeah.
But
Lynn
yeah,
Sanity.
yeah, yeah.
See, I like Wing Grace. Wing Grace is like me. He's a nerd of all cultures. Cause like me, I'm sci-fi, sports, and music.
Yes, but Talin was great. Again, loved her grounding everything, and this was low key a girls trip. I really that really didn't come to me at the very beginning, but that's definitely what it is and what it turns out to be. So, yeah, we get a girls trip in Star Trek. Loved it. It was great. So let's talk about the other storyline, which admittedly, I know you said is one of your favorite episode or your favorite episode of the season so far. I kind of hated the Boimler stuff, the Boimler or Brotherford stuff in this episode.
I kind of blocked it out.
It was not good.
It
Not
was
good,
not. It
man.
was not. And to be such a great, like I would just have rather them done an entire episode of Tendi, Mariner, and Talin
Yes.
on Romulus than keep jumping back to that because it was the B plot, and the B plot is the B plot for a reason,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But it was so because it's like what, and now they're done, yeah, and then the Mark Twain thing. Now when the two of them are doing the Mark Twain thing, I thought it was funny,
Yeah.
just the two of them. But when they're trying to get the captain and the alien, yeah, I wasn't really into it.
Yeah, it was a case of taking it too far. And then the Bonsai. Now I know that character, the alien character, is from some other TNG episode, but yeah, I could care less
I
about
forget
any
who
of
they
that stuff going
were.
on.
What Wing Grace is in here. I know he probably knows what, or Tasha knows. I've seen that creature, that species before, but I know where it was. I bet it was the one where Captain Picard and them were locked up and they were
Hmm.
kidnapped, and it turned out to be the cadet was the one who had actually arranged for it. Remember,
Yeah, I think I
there were
remember that
four
one.
of
Yeah.
them in that place.
Yeah.
I think that was that species, the one that wanted to eat, and he asked him, how long can you go without food? And he
Oh
said,
wow.
yeah, what's his name said that was it.
North from TNG season 3. Yeah. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah.
That's why I knew I recognized them with the protruding and the fangs,
Yeah.
but I could not place it for a minute.
Yeah, Wingrace also says it was almost like they were afraid they would lose the goofy loving audience if they didn't throw in a zany subplot. Yeah, I could have done without it, man. Have we had that? Have we taken that risk of where we haven't shown certain characters at all in a Lower Decks episode? I don't know. I don't know.
Sometimes less is more.
Yeah, agreed.
So
Totally
you don't
agreed.
always have to have, and you like even Strange New Worlds sometimes, and I speak out of love, but even Strange New Worlds sometimes has that where they're trying to have too many plots going on at one time.
Yeah.
And Discovery was the king
Oh boy.
of
Yeah.
having too many plots going on at the same time. Like I just watched Discovery and there were like 15 storylines going on at the same time. Love it, but still.
Oh man. Yeah, and of course there's a Times Arrow reference with that as well. Um, let's talk about the cold open. Cold open, man. We once again got a ship being destroyed, but in this case it was an Orion ship, and in this case they weren't being sought after. They actually attacked this mystery vehicle and they got destroyed. So I felt like that was a little bit interesting. They don't care about everybody. So it seems like they might be targeting a specific group of people, and in this case, the Orion ship was in the wrong place at the wrong time. So,
Here's a question. Are they being destroyed though?
oh man, this keeps coming up. This keeps
Are they
coming up.
being destroyed? Are they being downloaded? Are they being sent to another? I mean, what's going on here? Because if they're being destroyed, that would be kind of dark for Lower Decks, man. I mean, Lower Decks had one crew die, and I thought that was kind of dark. That one ship where the captain didn't want the plastic peeled
Yeah,
off, and the Packlids destroyed them
yeah.
or whatever. But man, that would be pretty dark, though, man.
Uh, I'm not so sure, but we did see they actually showed the people being disintegrated.
I
Disintegrated?
know, and I was just like, "Are they going there? Okay, maybe they are.
But it could be the case they're being phased out to some other mystery
Could
realm or
be.
something.
I mean, if they are, then I'm okay with it. That's Star Trek. We always have. Oh yeah, this outpost was destroyed. Hey, go find out what did it.
Yeah. Tasha posts these ships are being destroyed, right? I
I don't know.
I
Like I
mean,
said, that's kind of dark for,
yeah.
but hey, maybe that's what they're going for.
I did feel it was kind of cruel because we had the guy from the Wedge Dooge episode, the one who babysitted the Targ and took over the ship and became captain of the ship.
Yeah,
He got destroyed. I'm like, no, I like that guy. Come on, man. So who
yeah,
knows?
that was cool. I liked all these little side gag. No, see, that's when Lower Decks works, Clarence. Like I love the thing with the Romulan ship where he's like, oh, God, I hate torturing Remans. Yeah, it just gets in and you can't get it out of your clothes. And
Yeah.
it's a really morbid dark, but he's like talking about, yeah, you were probably the one scheming to replace. Of course, I want you dead, but I would never see.
Well, that actually made me think of the question, and I always love when they show these other races in lower decks. Do you think there's a possibility of ever, and not even just in animated form, but do you think there's a possibility of ever getting a show? And I think DS9 might be the closest we've been to this, but ever get a show that's not centered directly around Starfleet people? I mean, could we have a Klingon show or have a Orion show. Do you think that's a possibility as we try to branch out and do different stuff? Is that something they could do?
I can emphatically say no. It's hard enough to make people like stuff when there's just a bunch of humans and one or two aliens thrown in. If you DS9 was the one, I mean, you had Cisco and you had Jake and you had Bashir.
Yeah.
Those are the only three humans you had. Okay, everybody else, most of them looked human, but
Yeah.
for in show they weren't. Okay, and of course you had Miles. You had Miles.
Yeah. Come
I
in later.
forget,
But no,
and
he's
his
there from the
wife,
beginning.
if you're gonna count there. Yeah, Miles was there from the beginning.
Worf came in later.
But you had all these different, and it was cool that you had main characters that were not humans that were part of the main plot. That was very cool. That was one of the things that still to this day
Yeah.
made DS9 stand out.
Yeah. Yeah. Very impressive. Let's pick up a few comments right quick. In reference to the ships being destroyed, I think when Grace is saying two thoughts, that could be the dimensional shift transport from TNG. Interesting, interesting. Or they only with or they only kill the people that attacked them first, which was only the Orion so far. That's interesting as well. The Orions attacked, and that's the only ones we really saw disintegrated so up close. So yeah, maybe they have ulterior motives to actually capture these people. Who knows? And Tasha says, I don't think the crew is being killed. So we'll see, man. That's you know, as far as setting up a mystery, I think they're doing a good job. And it's a mystery. It's not like a discovery mystery box. It's just a mystery because there's really no clues. We have nothing to go on. But hey, tell me something great, and I might love it because I love what they're doing so far. So
I think the episode with, of course, of Strange New Worlds with Tendi, excuse me, with um, Mariner and Boimler going
mhm.
over to live action, I think they've won a lot of people over. I think
Yeah,
there are quite a few people who are watching this show in a different light now and just realize that a lot of the goofiness is just based around the medium that it is. It
yeah.
is an animated medium. So things are going to be, it's like, did you see this episode? Look how bigger Rutherford is than Boimler. But
Dude,
go ahead.
a good point. Yeah, you're right. In real life, Boimler or Jack Quaid is very much taller. But it seemed like Mariner was taller this episode. I don't know if it was just me or Talin and Tendi are just short, but she's way taller than those two characters from what I could tell. She seemed huge in this episode. So I don't know if they're trying to maybe put them more in line with their real life characters. I don't
What's my
know.
boy that voices Rutherford?
Eugene Cordero.
Eugene Cadero. Great. Can't wait to see him in Loki season
Yeah.
2. But and he's short.
Yeah,
He's
he
a
is.
lot
He
shorter
is.
than
Yeah.
Jack and Tawny. But I think people are looking at that and going, wow, these characters are this way in this medium, but you take them out of that medium and put them in another one. And don't get me wrong, they were still silly
Yeah.
in Strange New Worlds. But I think there's quite a few people I'm seeing who are either started watching Lower Decks or either giving it another chance because of that appearance.
Yeah. No, totally agreed, man. And as far as this season goes thus far, I've enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. I mean, there's been some misses, but there also been some really great episodes like this one we're talking about tonight. And with that, let's go ahead and get our ratings for this episode. If you're listening in the chat, please drop your rating in the chat. Tell us how you like this episode. So, Larry, how would you rate this episode?
Okay, I'm going to give this one because, as I said, the Boimler and Rutherford thing brought the episode down a tiny bit for me. So I'm going to go with a 4.6.
Oh, wow. Wow. Big
I
talk.
really love this. Love
Big
this
talk.
episode.
And I think I'm gonna be at about a 4.3 on this one.
Okay.
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. You know, filling in some of the gaps, making Tendi even more of a fan favorite because I like the character. She was always one of my favorite characters, and
Well,
now
well,
it
think
just
about it.
kind of solidified that.
She's one of the first characters we saw. Am I correct?
Yeah, yeah, I believe
Because
so.
when
Yeah.
she first got to the Cerritos, and we're like, and she walks in and she's all gleeful and bright eyed, and
Oh boy, yeah, yeah, yeah. We're seeing growth in these characters, man. I'm loving it.
that Tasha mentioned that earlier about how Mariner's growth, and a lot of people have said that okay, if we're just going to keep doing the same thing over and over, even though it's animation, what's the point? But you can honestly see that the characters are. I'm glad they moved them out of the lower decks of the bunks.
Uh huh.
I'm glad the show's changing. It's not
Yeah.
just like Maggie, and I'm no diss to the Simpsons. We know they are holier than thou. But I mean, come on, the kids have been kids for 30 years. Maggie's been a baby for over 30 years.
Yeah, nah, I get it. I've never been a Simpsons fan, but yeah, I totally get it. Oh man, we're supposed to do items. I guess we'll get on that next week. I forgot about it.
What I
So Tasha gives it four out of five bonsai plants. So we kind of did last week. We did items. I forgot all about it. But when Grace saying in the chat, my biggest stamp of approval is I would have no problem rewatching it right away. Yeah, I've watched this one quite a few times at this point and enjoyed it every time, except the Boimler part.
I always have to rewatch them because by the time they air on Thursday and we do the review on Monday, I got to rewatch it
Yeah, yeah, it's so
because
long. Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I guess we're going to kind of wrap it up there.
awesome.
Thanks to each and every one of you guys for being in the chat. It's been a lot of fun and can't wait to see what comes up next week. Hopefully, we'll start to get the unfolding of the mystery of this mysterious ship and, see where that's going. But I'm enjoying it so far. So, Larry, thanks for joining.
Hey, thanks for having me.
And to everyone in the chat and Valeria, until next time, live long and prosper.